Welcome to Fonder Direkt. As you may have noticed now, this episode will be held in English, and it's a small price to pay because today I can present to you the fund manager of the Baltic Horizon fund. His name is Tarmo Karotam. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I'd like to shed some light on the structure of your fund. It's almost like a REIT, like a real estate investment trust, which is more common in the US and a bit less common here in the Nordics. What are the pros and the cons of this structure?
Thank you for asking. This is a good question. I think that it needs to be explained a bit more what structure we are using. Maybe I would start to say that the Northern Horizon Capital, which is the management company of this fund, is a professional fund manager in the region, and we've managed Luxembourg funds, Danish funds, Finnish funds, and Estonian fund. So we know the structures and we know the benefits of them, and that's why we have chosen it for Baltic Horizon. Yes, it is a REIT-like structure, and this means that at least 80% of the dividends we pay out annually. And I think some pros that I can list in addition to that is that we have very strict fund rules. So in a company, you can change strategy very quickly, whereas we have very strict strategy, Baltic state real estate investments, cash flow, capital cities. So it is something which we live by. It's like a little.
So
Bible.
The investor knows exactly what they're getting.
Exactly.
Basically.
So a lot of investors in the fund's case trust the management team, and but it's good to have a certain framework for them. Also, fund structures are tax efficient. I think many of our investors have investigated that, and because the tax is pushed to the investor level, we pay very little tax at the local levels, and so it can be very, very beneficial.
That's interesting. So we have to ask, how do you make your money? What do you do?
Baltic Horizon invests into core cash flow properties in the Baltic capitals, retail and office assets, and what we thrive on is on the trend of back offices being opened by Nordic companies in the Baltic cities. For example, Vilnius has become very big in shared service centers, and our portfolio houses as well many Swedish tenants such as SEB Global Services, all having their back office there.
Is that a typical tenant?
It's quite a typical tenant nowadays in the Baltic states. So the back office of these large Swedish companies or banks. We have also Swedbank IT, we have G4S, the securities company, and many of these tenants which are also expanding, and a lot of the jobs, maybe it's not good to say, but a lot of the jobs in the Nordics are being transferred to the Baltics.
We are very aware of
that. So
yes.
For us, that's very good. That's been very good. So in a transition phase of us becoming also service-based economies.
Okay.
So essentially, we want to have long-term international tenants in our buildings. We have new buildings and long-term contracts, central located.
How long are these contracts?
We have average contract length unexpired is 5 years currently in the portfolio. And we have agreements which are 10 years fixed, 12 years fixed. But then we have also some more dynamic contracts which are 2-3 years fixed because we want to also have the flexibility. If some other tenants want to expand, then we can manage the tenant mix on the go.
So can they get out of these contracts? What if they go out of business or anything like that?
We've lived through that as well.
Okay.
During the crisis, it was a good test of seeing what will happen with these contracts. I would say that they went through the courts with many of them. Our legal system is strong. This is actually based on German law when it was re-established back in '91. So it holds.
It's strict,
and I can tell you one example. 3 years ago, we had one Danish tenant that just signed a 7-year fixed lease, and 1 year later, for cost-cutting reasons and re-strategizing reasons, they had to cancel their office in Tallinn. So we entered into negotiations with them, and we were lucky to, actually end up the negotiations at a good settlement.
Okay.
So it always becomes a negotiation at the end of the day, but they were aware that they cannot get rid of this contract just so easily.
So real estate, it's a really capital-intensive business, right? How do you finance this, and what's your leverage ratio?
We we keep our leverage quite conservative, between 50 to 55%.
Is that relatively conservative? Because 50% is, in a lot of sectors, it's not conservative.
Well, I think in the real estate sector, it is relatively conservative. I mean, what we see investors doing, they go up to 65, 70%, and there's very little room for them in terms when it comes, when a crisis comes. So you have to have that buffer. Maybe in the future we will reduce the leverage even further, but we feel comfortable with this leverage lever, because we also want to achieve returns of 12 to 15% per annum for the investors.
Okay, and then you need a lot of leverage, of course. You said when the crisis comes, you just said. What about if you're stuck in these long contracts, some of them up to 10 years? What about the rate hike cycle? I mean, a lot of people would argue that we're at some kind of bottom right now, and the rates will only go up from here. Can you get stuck in a situation where your tenant contracts are longer than your rate negotiation contracts? Is that a risk?
We have fixed our cost of debt for it's close to 5 years. Okay. So let's say it was our main worry last year, and that's when we renegotiated a lot of our loan agreements to fix them, so we don't have to really worry about that. I think the rates will be increasing, but gradually in Europe. We are in Eurozone, so we are dependent on what's happening in the European Central Bank. But of course, it was really important for us to fix them because we are a dividend payer, and rolling dividend has been 7.5%. We want to pay out these regular dividends also in the future. So for us, it's really important to fix it.
All right. What's your outlook for the coming year, for 2018 and 2019?
We're really focusing on our portfolio right now to make sure that we have utilized all the value creation possibilities. So some of the properties we are expanding now in order to create value and additional income, and we really want to keep as well the occupancy high, so we keep our tenants close. At the moment, the occupancy is about 97.4%, so very, very, very good. But I think the outlook is to grow, but grow sustainably, and find properties and find developers that are willing to sell at slightly better prices. We have a very strong presence now in the Baltic markets, and I think we have been able to make good deals with the developers.
Do people know your name in the Baltic region?
For sure.
For sure, in the real estate business.
Absolutely.
That's great to know.
So we are, as you know, we are the first listed alternative investment fund in Stockholm. We were also the first listed real estate group in the Baltic states. Nobody had done the strategy like that, which doesn't have an end. And we also had the first rated S&P rated bond by a real estate group. So I think we've been well covered and well understood. So, but we're happy to talk more about what we're doing, and that's more information in our annual reports and website. So.
Yeah, I know that you have a lot of investors in Sweden as well. So, but where can you buy this fund if you're interested now?
I think it's quite easy. You just go to your regular bank and ask and place an order through your bank. Of course, Avanza and Nordnet. We have almost 2,000 investors from Avanza already. Those platforms definitely, that's where you can get access to. But also our website. That's where you can find our ticker.
All right. I'll make sure to put the website in the description below. Thank you very much for coming here, Tarmo.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks.